What's good, YouTube? Welcome back. Today it is Lazy Daze Tubby, and I'm back at it again with some more history reaction for you guys today. And it is some more Kings and Generals content for you. And it is their series, The Early Muslim Expansion. And we are on episode 7, The Byzantine Empire Strikes Back. I'm really looking forward to finding out what Kings and Generals have in store for me today. They make amazing content, so if you haven't already, head over to their page. The link's going to be in the description box down below. If you guys are enjoying my reaction, looking forward to all future reactions, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. But I am going to jump straight into this one.
The Muslim victory of victories at Havent in 642 finally broke the back of the Sassanid Empire and rendered its domains west of the Zagros barrier all but defenseless to annexation into the Caliphate. Unbeknownst to the Caliph, this climactic clash was also to have unexpected consequences for him personally. Another unexpected curveball was thrown at the ascending Islamic world, and particularly one of its most recent acquisitions, Egypt, by the Byzantines. Newly emerged from a period of internal post-Heraclean division, it would forcibly bring the Nile's Arab conqueror, Amr ibn Alas, back to the forefront of world events. Welcome to the penultimate video in our second season on the early Muslim expansion, the dawning of a new age in Rashidun history, a long overdue attempted Roman counterattack, and the Battle of Nikiou. Today's video is brought to you by Ground News. In today's world of online news and social media, seeing the full picture and staying informed is difficult, so Ground News has taken a different approach in order to improve the media ecosystem. There are news comparisons. Or click the link to our channel.
Okay, what we got
in late
here?
643, shortly after Amr returned from his expedition against the so-called Pentapolis, the Egyptian governor travelled back to Medina in order to meet with Umar, with whom he already had a somewhat tense relationship. Mistrusted by the Caliph, Amr received a frosty reception from the very start. The tension between the two men wasn't helped by the fact that Umar, who always kept a close eye on his governors via an internal spy network, suspected Amr of unjustly.
That's interesting information. That is really interesting information. Yeah, there's a lot about Umar I'm interested in. If there's any more information about Umar and the way he governed during this period of time, that'd be quite interesting to know for me. So let me know in the if I don't mumble. Let me know in the comment box down below if there's any videos in regards to him.
Appropriating Egypt's wealth. So, when the latter returned to his province, the Caliph dispatched a trusted inspector, Muhammad bin Maslama, to appraise Amr's assets. The latter produced an account of his assets, and he was found guilty of taking too much. The excess was confiscated and taken back to Medina.
Okay.
That wasn't the end of the Caliph's incessant prodding. A short while thereafter, unsatisfied at the lackluster revenues flowing into the treasury from Egypt, Umar had a heated debate with Amr by letter. After that ended in a deadlock, a Copt was sent to Medina to inform the Caliph of his province's financial situation. He bluntly informed Umar that previous rulers of Egypt had seen to the land's prosperity before taking anything from it, while Muslim governors only extracted. In response, Umar carved Egypt into two separate administrative districts during late 644, giving Amr Lower Egypt to govern from Fustat, while Upper Egypt would be ruled from Fayum by Abdullah ibn Sa'd ibn Abi Sa, the foster brother of Uthman. Predictably, Amr was once again infuriated at this deliberate diminishing of his authority. Back in Medina, a deadly plot had formed.
At the same time, you are only like a governor,
around Hormuzan, who had converted to Islam and used his vast experience in Sassanid administration and governance to become one of Umar's key advisors. Despite this, the Persian noble never forgot the injury done to his home. It seems that Hormuzan made contact with Firuz, a Sassanid soldier who was enslaved after Qadisiyah or Nahavand and brought to the Caliphate's capital. And in November of 644, Firuz knifed Umar. Before passing away 3 days after, the second caliph appointed a shura, or council of 6 men, to appoint his successor from among their ranks.
Interesting.
After deep debate, they decided that Uthman would become the third Rashidun Caliph. It is worth noting that while Sunni Islam views Uthman as one of the rightly guided caliphs, Shia Muslims believe this election should not have occurred at all, and Ali was to be the next in line.
Again, I don't know too much about the Muslim culture and so on and so forth, so I'd like to know about the two differences there. The Sunni, so the Sunni and also the Shia, what are the two differences? If there's videos in regards to that, I'd like to know. So let me know in the comments box down below.
This election should not have occurred at all, and Ali was to be the next in line. Shortly after, Amr ibn al-As visited Uthman in order to lobby for his Upper Egyptian colleague's removal. The new caliph refused outright, prompting him to declare that he wouldn't return to Egypt until Abdullah ibn Sa'd was removed. In response to this threat, Uthman appointed his foster brother governor of all Egypt, further deepening the dispute between the two men. The Romans in Egypt were not happy with Amr's policies, but Abdullah's attempts to increase the incomes from the province were even less popular. Alexandria in particular bore the brunt of this new lust for revenue, leading its notoriously riotous population to undertake drastic measures. A group of prominent Romans dispatched messages to the new emperor, Constans II. These letters outlined the outrages of Muslim rule and its jizya tax, but also pointed out that Abdullah had let the Nile realm's defense slip into a pitiful state, and the city was only garrisoned by a paltry 1,000 men and could be easily taken. Perceiving an opportunity to regain control of Egypt and remedy the wound which its loss had dealt to his empire and his pride, Constans began secretly amassing a great strike force of 300 ships and many thousands of soldiers, command of which he bestowed on a eunuch known as Manuel. Constans's fleet was ready after almost a year. Because the reduced Byzantine Empire was still the dominant naval power in the Mediterranean, the Caliphate having not yet developed any seaborne capacity, there was nothing to stop this fleet from unexpectedly sailing straight into the harbour at Alexandria in early 646. As the Roman sympathizers predicted, the 1,000-strong Muslim garrison was no adequate defense against this shock assault from the sea. When Roman forces landed almost unopposed, Alexandria's population simultaneously rose up against the occupying Arabs. Most of the city's garrison was slain in the brief clash that followed. However, while the invasion army began ravaging the vicinity around Alexandria, some of the Muslims that escaped travelled to Fustat and informed the governor what was happening. Abdullah ibn Sa'd didn't even have a chance to react. Lacking confidence in their new viceroy's martial ability, the Muslims of Egypt sent a delegation to Caliph Uthman, urging him to send Amr back so that he could put an end to the crisis.
Just straight away.
Understanding that Amr was both a man of formidable military talent and feared by the Romans, Uthman bit his tongue and asked Amr to take his post back. Wasting no time, the man who had conquered the Romans once before travelled to Fustat as quickly as possible with the aim of emulating his previous achievement. Upon his arrival, the morale of Islam's warriors was boosted significantly, and they prepared for war eagerly, while Amr started planning. Informed by spies and agents that the Romans were advancing leisurely from Alexandria to Fustat, many of Amr's brash officers pressed for their commander to attack and confine the enemy to the treacherous Mediterranean metropolis before all Egypt revolted against the Muslim regime. Amr did not agree with this appraisal, as he believed that this advance would stretch Roman supply and communication lines to the limit.
Makes sense.
Manuel and his army marched under the close observation of Amr's informants, who constantly reported the Romans' position and strength. The land forces made their way up the eastern bank of the Nile, accompanied by a large flotilla of supporting warships sailing parallel to them on the river itself. Byzantine indiscipline began causing problems almost immediately. Roman soldiers moved from town to town, and the population was not happy with their behavior.
Just pillaging and looting.
When Manuel
clearly.
neared the halfway point between Alexandria and Fustat, Amr began a countermarch with 15,000 warriors of his own, moving on a direct collision course with the Romans. Both armies finally came into contact with one another near a large town
What's a mark
known as
gonna do
Nikiou
here then?
or Nikiou. After resting for the night in their respective camps, the Romans and Muslims deployed on the cultivated, featureless and flat terrain just south of Nikiou. Amr's left, a cavalry regiment under the command of Sharik bin Sumay, rested on the Nile River, as did the Roman right. In addition to their organization in neat formations, a large number of Roman archers also embarked on the riverine ships. Once his preparations for battle were complete, Manuel ordered the Byzantine ground forces into effective bow range before coming to a halt and unleashing a destructive barrage of arrows against the Muslim position. On the river, Manuel had prepared a clever stratagem. His ships continued sailing until they passed by Amr's flank, at which point their onboard archers struck the Muslims in the flank as well. Amr's men had already been struggling to deal with the frontal volley, and so suffered terribly from the multi-directional bombardment. Sumay's regiment in particular was almost totally decimated, having been positioned closest to the river, but even Amr had a horse shot out from under him. Despite this punishment, however, the Muslims were unwilling to surrender the battlefield, and so endured the storm with considerable tenacity.
Wow.
Once Manuel believed that his enemy was sufficiently weakened, he called back the flanking vessels and had their onboard troops fall into ranks behind the main army, and then began yet another arrow attack against the Muslim line. The moment after the Byzantine eunuch general ordered a halt to his preliminary barrage, he directed his infantry to advance into spear and sword range. Although early Muslim armies were generally portrayed as being most comfortable in this kind of close quarters engagement, the Roman soldiers nevertheless impacted Amr's battered host with considerable ferocity.
Yeah, they're also like battered.
Line. Sumay's regiment, which had endured the brunt of Manuel's seaborne missile attack, actually did break and run. Amr hastily pulled the remainder of his men away from the Romans' attack and halted only a short distance away in order to regroup as best he could. However, Manuel, believing that the Muslims were already beaten, did not advance and finish his enemy off, instead simply waiting where he was. After a brief, eerie pause in the fighting, a magnificently dressed Roman champion, clad in gold-studded armor, rode out into the open space between the two armies and challenged the Muslims to single combat.
Interesting.
This would give the latter time to take a breath, reform, and reorganize. So, one of Amr's favored Mubarizan, an Arab known as Hormal, accepted the Roman offer and strode out to meet the enemy fighter. With the remainder of both armies bearing witness, their respective champions initially clashed with spears, and neither combatant was able to score a decisive blow. Dropping their polearms after a certain amount of time had gone by, the champions clashed with sword and shield, but again neither warrior could get an edge over the other. This continued until the larger Roman duelist managed to disarm and severely wound Hormal with a series of fierce thrusts. As the hulking Roman was about to finish Hormal off, the Arab champion unsheathed his short dagger and plunged it into his unsuspecting counterpart's throat with prodigious speed. Although Hormal managed to win the duel by the skin of his teeth, he died of his wounds a few days later, much to Amr's sorrow. This traditional single combat had given the Muslim general time to get his army back in order, and by the time Hormel had won, Amma was ready. Sumay's routed regiment even returned to the battlefield and formed up. When the whole Muslim army was ready, they charged and engaged in a grinding melee with Manuel's forces, combat which they were far better suited to. After a few hours of Roman resistance, the eunuch soldiers broke and ran, pursued and hunted all the way to Alexandria.
No way!
Amma brought up a number of catapults and launched boulders into the recalcitrant city, whose own artillerists fired back. The defences nevertheless held firm under such bombardment until one of the gatekeepers, Ibn Basana, offered to let Amma's troops inside if he, his family and property were retained, terms which the Muslim commander found agreeable.
Of course.
Therefore, at some point in the middle of 646,
yes, you can.
Alexandria's gates were opened and the Islamic army poured inside. Any Roman unit opposing the incursion was swiftly dealt with, and even those coming up to reinforce the breach were pushed away. As the rebellious city began falling victim to a sacking, the surviving imperial soldiers withdrew to their ships and sailed away. Before the vengeful Arabs could truly wreak havoc on the ancient Mediterranean metropolis and its vanquished inhabitants, an unknown Muslim approached Amma and beseeched him to stop the violence. Although the conqueror of Egypt was by no means a merciful man by nature, his kinsman's words had such an impact that Amma immediately ordered the cessation of hostilities.
Good. I know it wasn't him, but I'm glad it happened. Like, it got stopped so quick.
In the aftermath of the second siege of Alexandria, Amma ripped down the walls and made the city, in his words, like the house of an adulteress, accessible from all sides. The neglect of Egypt's defense was also remedied with the new division of its Muslim garrison into 4 parts, 2 in Fustat and 1 each in Alexandria and on the northern coast, to be moved around where necessary. It would also be rotated and the troops replaced every 6 months.
Smart.
Not only had Amma ibn Alas both conquered and reconquered Egypt in difficult circumstances, he had built the foundations of a rule that would secure Muslim hegemony over the fruitful country. For this, Amma well expected to be rewarded by Uthman, but he was to be disappointed. Uthman wanted his tax fiend of a brother to occupy the plum position, but was aware that Amma probably deserved some reward for his deeds. So, summoning the conqueror to his place of residence, Uthman inquired if he would like to remain in military command of Egypt, while Abdullah ibn Sa'd managed civilian administration. Amma responded with the witty barb, "In that case I would be like the man holding the horns of the cow while another milks it." For the remainder of Uthman's caliphate, Amma would bear a potent grudge and even oppose him publicly. This mutual resentment was to have serious consequences for Islamic history in the near future.
Interesting. I'm looking forward to finding out that.
The second season of our series on the early Muslim expansion will conclude next time with coverage of the Battle of Sufetullah, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please.
I am definitely looking forward to that episode. That is the end of this episode. What an amazing story. I enjoyed it. If you're looking forward to my future reactions, then like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and I will catch you in the next video.